You're looking at Lithuania, one of Europe's tiniest countries, and as far as some people are concerned, one of the newest. That's not true though. Life for Lithuanians began 1,000 years ago, and it reached its high point in the 16th century when Lithuania formed an alliance with Poland and became one of the largest, most populous nations in Europe. Sadly though, the good times didn't last. In the 17th century, the Russians came knocking, and after a series of annexations, Lithuania disappeared from the map. Independence was only re-established in the early 1990s. That might sound like a lot of history guff, but in order to understand this country and its people, you do have to consider all the elements of its past. Lithuania is nestled on the Baltic coast, between Russia and Latvia. And here's a surprise, it's been scientifically proven to be geographically the centre of Europe. Fitting then that it joined the EU in 2004, a fact that was celebrated in 2009 when the capital, Vilnius, became European Capital of Culture. It's a staunchly Catholic country of around 3.5 million people. Needless to say, that means plenty of pretty jaw-dropping churches. But it's Trakai Castle that gets the nod as the most famous building in the country. In a past life, it was the seat of government. Nowadays, it's a fun day out. There are boat trips around the lake for the best views, and inside, a couple of museums delve into the castle's history. Not a bad view, some nice hills, but it doesn't really tell the whole story. Lithuania's had 4 capitals, Vilnius, Kaunas, Trakai, and this is the first, Kernavė. It was actually a series of hill forts, and it formed the seat of government for the Grand Duke of Lithuania back in the Middle Ages when the country was a pagan state. Archaeologists have found evidence of settlement here, dating back to the 4th century. Legend has it that when Kernavė was eventually sacked and burnt to the ground, a mystic princess, Prajauta, sat on the hills and shed tears for the fallen city. These days, visitors can actually search for the tears, which I'm told lie somewhere on this hillside. Right, let's have a look. Ooh, no, that's stinging nettles. But Lithuanians are a hardy bunch, and since liberation, Vilnius has blossomed into a Baltic stunner. Plenty of development and renovation have brought the city into the 21st century. But before I take a look at that, I'm going to explore the old town. This is one of the largest Baroque old towns in Eastern Europe, tucked into a valley between the Vilnia and Neris rivers. There are plenty of snaking lanes and cobbled streets to explore. It's a great place to get lost in for a few days. Ujapis! To you too, you might be thinking. But actually it translates as the other side of the river. And like the left bank in Paris, it's where all the arty types hang out. And guess what? It's an independent republic. Not your usual independent republic either. For a start, it's only just over half a square kilometre in size. And the government doesn't recognise it. But it does have its own flag, president, and army. All 12 of them. Seriously. And of course, their own constitution. I love this, it really sums up the spirit of Ujapis. Up here we've got everyone has the right to die, but this is not an obligation. Everyone has the right to love, and further down we've got a dog has the right to be a dog, and a cat is not obliged to love its owner, but must help in times of need. And those crazy ones might explain why further down we've got everyone has the right to be misunderstood. But at the bottom is my favourite bit. Here we have do not defeat, do not fight back, do not surrender. Some people in Vilnius just won't give up the revolution. It's a bohemian crowd that congregate here, and having heard the Constitution, it's easy to see why. The result is an unusual, interesting little district. Cosy cafes, art galleries, and artists' workshops, all very reminiscent of Copenhagen's famous Christiania. From Ujapis to on the piss. Well, not quite. Wow, look at that. Lithuanian socialising is all about good old-fashioned fun, rather than the laddish stag-do antics of other Eastern European cities. OK, take a look at this. This is the local tipple. It's called Troktine. I guess it's a bit like schnapps, and we've got lots of different kinds here. I've been talked through this. We've got a cherry one, a bitter one, an even more bitter one, That's got 27 different herbs in it. That is just really strong, that's 50%. And this is a honey one, so that's kind of like dessert, I guess. Now I'm going to try these one at a time. Let's have a go. Cherry first. Ooh, that's sweet. Oh, this bitter. Oh, actually, that went down the wrong way. Oh, ouch, that is very bitter. Finally, we finish off with honey for dessert. Independence for Lithuania has meant far more independence for Lithuanians, and that's most apparent in the emerging nightlife scene. Mobile phones flash, DJs spin, and fashion does all the talking. It's 21st century fun for all. In Lithuania, basketball is the hottest sports ticket in town. The national team has won the European Championships on 3 separate occasions, and has also picked up a cluster of Olympic medals since independence. Unsurprising then, that there have been many successful Lithuanian players in the lucrative American NBA. But interest in the domestic league is still huge. Literally huge. So, hello guys. Thanks for having me in on your training session. So, basketball's pretty popular here in Lithuania, isn't it?
I would say it's our second religion, most likely.
Someone told me that. They said it is the Lithuanian religion. And so are people really, really passionate about the sport here?
Yeah, definitely. You know, all over the world, the soccer is usually the #1 sport, but over here in Lithuania, definitely kind of crisscrosses. You know, soccer goes to second place, and basketball is, everybody, you know, loves it, everybody plays it, everybody watches it, and it's just, like I said, the sport #1.
A bit of slam dunk assistance. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whoa! Yes! I slam dunked it! With help. This spectacular strip of land is known as the Curonian Spit, a narrow sandbank that stretches along the Lithuanian coast down to Russia. Since the breakup of the Soviet Union, this has become Lithuania's tourism hotspot. The result is the growth and expansion of seaside resorts all along the coast, like Klaipėda here. This one's a little bit different. It's got a distinctly German feel to it, which perhaps is unsurprising. For large chunks of its history, it was part of Germany. The thatchwork-style buildings are the most obvious legacy of that era. Nowadays, though, Klaipėda is firmly under Lithuania's control, and it's the country's only seaport. Ferries operate out of here to Germany and Sweden. As one of the most connected cities in the country, Klaipėda also operates as a gateway for getting up close to the fascinating sand dunes. To learn a bit more about the ecology of the area, I headed an hour down the coast to a popular fishing village called Nida and met up with local guide Matas. And so is this a traditional boat then?
These boats were traditional here from 13th century. It was one of the most popular means to travel on the water because the roads were very poor.
So we're travelling along the Spit now, and it's 100 kilometres of sand, is that right?
Yes, yes. Actually, it's 5 cubical kilometres of sand.
So has this been the place that Lithuanians have traditionally come on holiday?
Yes, you can say so. It's the most famous resort, not only in Lithuania, but it was a famous resort in Europe, beginning 1920s, because the artists, the painters from Germany, from France, Italy were coming here to have holiday and to make some unique landscapes, pictures of what they see, because the landscape was even more sandy than today.
Very nice. Thank you. Safely back on terra firma, Matas took me to another village to try out the local delicacy, smoked fish.
Maybe 5 times. You salt it, leave it for 2 or 3 hours for the salt to get in. And then generally you smoke it in the smoker. Okay, so he's going to smoke them in there, right? Yes, yes. As a smoker, you smoke them for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. Take a look. There's the smoke coming
wow.
out.
It's like a sauna.
Yeah, sauna.
A fish sauna. So, Martus, I guess at one point most people around here were fishermen. Are there many
Yes.
left working today?
Yeah, with the time you get less and less, but truly, 100 years ago, every man was a fisherman because no other jobs were here, no agriculture, nothing. So everybody had, you know, their curenas, the old boat which we were traveling on, and they went fishing, of course.
Look at that.
Have a taste.
No, that's a nice bit there.
And me personally, I like most this part.
That tastes really good.
You just take and
That's a lovely
and
taste, a really nice smoky taste. 2 hours inland from Klaipėda is one of Lithuania's most iconic monuments. Thank you, Lithuanians, for this hill of crosses, which testifies to the nations of Europe and to the whole world the faith of the people of this land. Lithuania only joined the Roman Catholic fold in the early 1400s. Fast forward a few centuries, and this spot became the most poignant place in the country, not only for Catholicism, but also for nationalism. It was calculated that there are over 50,000 crosses on this rather modestly sized hill. Personally, I think that's a massive underestimate. The first ones were placed here in 1831, in memory of those who gave their lives in a rebellion against the Russian regime. 30 years later, and another insurgency saw the Holy Hill expand. By the turn of the 20th century, the hill had become widely regarded as a sacred place. It was under the Soviet occupation where it played its most pivotal role. In a bid to stamp out nationalist sentiment, the Soviets would burn the wooden crosses, melt the metal ones, and smash and bury the concrete ones. Then, they'd bulldoze the hill. But by dawn, the hill would have reappeared, covered in small crosses sticking out of the ground, much to the annoyance of the Soviet army and KGB guards. This cat-and-mouse game continued until the beginning of the final move towards independence in the late 1980s. The hill had become a symbol of national defiance. If upright crosses were detected, then locals would lay them flat on the ground or even pin them to the floor. The Soviets became so incensed at the continued re-emergence of crosses that they would even fake epidemics so they could block roads to keep people away, and at one time planned a dam to flood the entire area. It's not under any jurisdiction. Anyone can come here and lay a cross. Simply bring one along or purchase one locally. It's pretty poignant, from the tiniest simple wooden crosses to the tallest, most elaborate efforts. Each has an individual charm, as well as a collective significance. It is incredibly powerful, obviously as a religious monument, but also as a symbol of Lithuanian pride and identity. And, of course, it's a growing, living monument. It can only get bigger. I've almost finished my journey around Lithuania, and I found a country that's confounded my expectations. Throughout the dark years of Soviet occupation, the people here hung on to a strong culture, identity and tradition that is still alive and well today. The Lithuanians were nature-worshipping pagans until the 15th century, and, you know, there's still so much for a modern-day nature worshipper to enjoy. Unspoilt beauty, acres of forest, lakes, a beautiful coastline and loads of space. Or, if you're more of a city person, Vilnius is one of the most charming capitals I've been to, with a lovely old town. I've had a great time. I've eaten well and drunk a bit too well. Still, I don't want to upset the locals.